Well, it is 3 o'clock, I'm told, on July 27th. We are meeting of the Board of Library Trustees at the main library. And in case anybody is interested, the temperature hit on my car 95 degrees. But it's a lot cooler in here, so we welcome public comment. Roll call, please.
Okay. Mr. Eisbart?
Present.
Ms. Tucker?
Present.
Mr. Castleman?
Present.
Mr. Moss?
Present.
Mr. Williams?
Present.
Mr. Seifert?
Here.
And Ms. Shamnoff here. We are all present.
Thank you. All present, none absent. I'll entertain a motion that we adopt the agenda.
So moved.
And the second.
Second.
Any discussion? We did have one change, and that is item 6, Capital Projects Committee Report. That was not mailed out. It should be at your table. Okay, good. Well, with that as a correction or an addition.
Do you want to mention a new business without the foundation?
Oh, we can bring that up.
Okay. Sounds good.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Thank you, that passes. Unless there's any objection, I would like to move the minutes as a group. Minutes, any objection? Thank you. Minutes of the regular session, June 22nd of 2023. Minutes of the executive session of June 22nd, 2023. And minutes of approval of claims, July 7th, 2023. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you, Jim. Thank you, Sharon. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
And opposed by nay. That passes. And David, you're up.
Thank you, Ben, and I'll try to keep this brief because we've got presentations today and all, but in your packet are your reports, plus I already went into a pretty, you can tell I was on vacation when I did this because it was looking at it as one of the longer reports I wrote up and stuff, so, let's put some detail on that report. But really, two main things to report on today. We finished the audit, and Ben and Susan were in the attendance with Crow LLP, the auditors. We again received a clean audit, and everything was completed for the annual financial report filing. That was done on the 29th of June, so we have submitted that for award consideration again. So another audit season has been completed, and we were successful on that. Thank you, Ben, for attending that, and even though it was a little challenging with the Microsoft Teams hearing them today, so.
I must say, David and his staff deserve kudos. The auditors said the preparation for the audit was excellently done.
Yeah,
So well
thanks.
done.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we worked very hard at that, and the thanks go to the staff. Jill, I know, has been here before, and all of the finance staff. They work very hard at making sure that we always receive a clean audit and all. So thank you, though. The only other thing to talk about is the budget. Of course, we're hot on the process of that at this point, getting the various items from the state in. We did get confirmation that the growth quotient is at 4% versus what would have been calculated at 5%. Just for perspective, that will mean we have about $285,000 less than what we would have had we had a 5% growth rate on it. So we will be factoring all of those in to the budget projections. To that end, we are looking at a Finance and Personnel Committee meeting upcoming in August that we'll want to set to discuss the budget as well as various HR items that are going on and things like that. Really, we're just working through those projections. Susan and I are scheduled to meet with the DLGF on August 29th. That will be where we have them, the state, review our budget, give us approval to advertise for the public hearings as well as the forms that go into Gateway. But everything looks like it should run smooth, and I'll be having those projections out to you shortly. We're still waiting for some July 31st state numbers to come in. And once those are in, then I'll be pulling the final projections together. So really, those are the main items. I don't want to take too much because, like I said, we do have some presentations today to go through. But I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions? Comments?
Does the drop in the growth rate, did that surprise you at all, or growth quotient, or is that?
Well, I mean, it was a legislative action. I mean,
Okay.
per the calculation of the 6-year average, it should be about 5%.
Oh.
It's capped at 5. But the legislature, because of the extreme growth in assessed value, they put those for this year, for '24 and '25, that it can be a maximum of 4%. At that point, the law, at this point, would expire and it would go back to its natural calculations. So it'll just have to be dealt with by all entities. It's not just library, it's every, property tax entity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the financial report
So
for
moved.
June 2023. Thank you, Jim, as presented. Thank you, Paul. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Thank you. Let's do the approval of the claims.
All right, the claims today total around $951,000, of which 2 claims account for almost 400, a little over 400,000. That is the insurance premiums, 208,000 on insurance premiums, and then in cataloging and metadata subscriptions from OCLC, that is just a little under 200,000. So two claims account for almost 50% of the claims today.
Questions? Motion to approve?
So moved. So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. They are coming around. Now, item 6, Capital Projects Committee. Mr. Chairperson?
Thank you, Ben. All right, I just thought it was time we gave an update, kind of an overall update for the Capital Projects Committee and where we're standing for the whole board. Just the reminders then, April 2022, so more than a year ago, our board unanimously approved our ACPL Facilities Master Plan. This was a forward-thinking plan in response to the tremendous growth in Allen County that we've all know about. The plan includes renovations or new construction at all of our 14 libraries, plus adding an additional branch in Huntertown. It was developed throughout 2021 and 2022 with significant community input, including multiple town hall meetings, focus groups, public hearings, and surveys. Just as a reminder, too, again, the history. We last made these system-wide changes in 2003 to 2007, which was as a result of a petition remonstrance procedure, which won wide community support at that time. Those changes included building our new incredible main library, which became a spur for downtown growth, as well as improvements and renovations throughout the system, including building 3 new branches and renovating 8 branches. Howard, important to note, Aboyd and DuPont, 2 of our busiest branches, have not had capital improvements since the 1990s. During the public input of the facility master plan, patrons were eager to help us write the next chapter for ACPL. We developed a transformative facility plan that offers an equitable and innovative approach to library services throughout Allen County. We listened to our community's response to our initial plan, and we made changes as appropriate to reflect the needs of our community. Ultimately, our plan was met with widespread support and enthusiasm from patrons and community leaders. In addition, due to the prudent fiscal management of this library board and leadership, we have $26.5 million in reserve to put toward the project, making the annual cost impact on a median Allen County homeowner just under $20 per year. That's less than the cost of one hardcover book at this point. Currently, we have over 200,000 cardholders and serve all residents of Allen County, with not only access to our books, but with access to a multitude of databases and programs. We hold the Genealogy Center, which is a world-renowned destination itself and a large draw for Fort Wayne. So where are we on the master plan? Well, after the 2 required public hearings in spring of 2022, no petitions were filed by the public requesting a referendum, which is the new procedure under Indiana law, which meant that no ballot referendum was required. Under Indiana law, our next step is to seek approval from our county council for the bonds to finance the plan. As we all know, anytime there is a discussion regarding an increase in taxes, whether that are income taxes or property taxes, the public rightfully should have an opportunity to weigh in. We believe the support we have received and the lack of any opposition shows that our community supports our plan. However, we have and continue to seek citizen input in alternate supplemental funding sources. In our case, we are asking that the increase in property taxes, equal as we have said on the average to the cost of one hardcover book a year, be viewed as an investment in the quality of life of Allen County residents. In our conversations with county leaders, we've discussed the timing of our plan, plus the impact to Allen County taxpayers. Specifically, the board is taking time to explore additional funding options, such as federal grants and tax credits, that could potentially lessen the cost to taxpayers. Still, we need taxpayer support for the library's project, and we believe the community wants to support its library and strengthen it for the future. The board will continue to work together and discuss with county officials about the best path forward for the project. One option we may consider is bringing the issue directly to the Allen County voters through a ballot referendum in May of 2024. Even with a winning referendum, Indiana law states that ultimately the county council must approve any bond financing necessary to implement and start the plan. We do want to thank our patrons for their patience and support throughout this process. We've been very happy with the level of engagement. Speaking of which, there is one more opportunity, or another opportunity, to let us know how ACPL is doing and what you want to see in your library. We have a survey going to get input on our strategic plan. We already have had more than 5,500 responses in the first week. If you haven't completed it yet, we ask you to please go to acpl.info/survey and complete the survey. I will say that I've received about 7 invitations to complete this survey so far, which I'm very happy to see, because that's what you need to do. That's what we need to do to get it out there. Anyway, that's our report right now for the Capital Projects Committee.
Thank you. Any questions? Good report, Marty. Thank you. All right. Would you like to introduce Petra?
I would, yes, thank you, Ben. So, speaking of the strategic plan, as you know, we are working on a revision to the plan, and as part of that, we wanted to look at how we can serve our entire Allen County community, specifically our immigrant and refugee populations, because we know there's tremendous potential for innovative service there. And to do that, we engage the service of Petra Solutions and 2 local experts in this matter. So I don't think I need to introduce them because I think they are already well known by you in this community, but I will introduce you to Irene Paxia and Andy Downs, who are going to be sharing what they have learned through their interviews, surveys, and focus groups during these past few months.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody, for having us here. I also did get an invitation to complete the survey, and I completed it. So it's definitely, the word is going around. But we are so thrilled to be here. It's been a few months coming, so this is quite exciting. And as Susan said, my name is Irene Paxia, and I have a very small business called Petra Solutions here in Fort Wayne. It's only about a couple of years old. I worked with immigrants and refugees directly for 20 years, and I have developed programs, and I've also been an immigrant myself. So a couple of years ago, I needed to be a little bit more flexible with my schedule, and I decided to propose a business, and I'm so thankful that I have the opportunity to work with the library. So thank you for your service, and I want to spend just one more 30 seconds on telling you about why the project that you have allowed us to work on is important, before we tell you all the details. From my perspective, and I think I can speak also from the perspective of many other immigrants and refugees in this community. Having worked in this community for 20 years, learned the languages and the greetings in many different languages, seen the struggles as well as celebrated a lot of the successes of immigrants and refugees. Having worked even in city government in my past life, I've never seen a government entity or a nonprofit entity or an entity altogether dedicating time and study to learn what actually the needs and the wants are of the immigrant and refugee community. So I want to first thank you, because it's quite exciting and quite unique. Here with me is Andy Downs. I'm sure a lot of you have seen and met him. And also sitting at the table is another member of the team, Tamay, and she's an executive assistant, so she's helped a lot with this project. Going right into it, Andy and I will take turns. I'll cover the first information about what we actually heard from immigrants and refugees, what this project entailed. And then Andy will help me describe some of the insights that we have collected from talking to partner agencies. And then we'll conclude our presentation with some general insights, kind of attempting to do a summary of what we've heard and some potential steps, strategic steps that the library can consider taking. And before we start, let me tell you that we don't have time to go over all the information that we have collected. We will have, however, a report that will include that information. So this is a brief presentation. The focus of this presentation for the board is mainly on the external input, what we heard from immigrants and refugees and partner agencies. We have collected a lot of information and useful information and feedback also from staff members. So this is the outline that I just explained. We'll go over our methodology, the insights by 3 groups. Anchors, a word that we use to intend and describe immigrants and refugees, individuals that have typically been here in the community for 5 years or longer. And they tend to be either informal or unofficial, or sometimes formal and official leaders in the community. They're often pastors of churches, community center leaders, sometimes they're hairdressers. And they are individuals that we have identified as having a good circle of influence, and they help other immigrants and refugees navigate the community. So we have done in-depth interviews with them. We'll talk about the focus groups with immigrants and, again, the partner agencies. As I mentioned, we won't go over the insights in this session, in this meeting, but we did start with the staff of the library. We had several discussions, facilitated discussions with managers and assistant managers of branches, and that helped us frame our work and learn more. We also talked to the DEI committee, and we have also hosted a couple of 2 different opportunities for the entire staff to participate remotely or in person with us, and that was an activity that included only 29 staff members. It was very good discussion, but even more insight we received from the survey that we did electronically, and that was circulated with the entire staff. We had 84 completed surveys. If you have any questions, please stop me anytime. By the way, I haven't said that. But as far as the interviews with individuals, the anchors that I described earlier, we held 9 of such interviews in May and June. We have interviewed people that represented several different countries: Chile, Myanmar, Philippines, Mexico, Bosnia, Democratic Republic of Congo, and also 2 individuals who are of Mexican descent, but were born in the US. And we've also talked to people who were Christian, Muslim, or who did not express any specific religious affiliation. As far as groups with immigrants, we've held 8 focus group discussions in the months of May, June, and July. And the countries of origin represented was a list even longer that we actually captured, to be honest. We talked to people from Colombia, Peru, Chile, Guatemala, Mexico, Democratic Republic of Congo, Myanmar, Thailand, and Haiti. As far as our partner organizations, and this is what Andy will cover later, we've held 10 interviews with the organizations that you see there: Downtown Fort Wayne, YWCA, Greater Fort Wayne, East Allen, County Schools, Work One, Fort Wayne Community Schools, Mexica Arts, and Boys and Girls Club. Okay, so how do we organize our discussions? What do we actually ask? And how are we organizing our insights for you today? The first is on the left. The list on the right is the summary of what we're presenting today. So when we talk to the staff members, when we talk to immigrants and refugees, we focused on certain similar themes, and these are the themes that we focused on. We allow for people to think about what an ideal library could look like. I find that really helps when you have been raised in a different country. Maybe you have traveled outside of the United States, or you may not know the library in the US in the same way that you know the library in the US. We talked about language access a lot. How can a person without fluent English abilities navigate the library? Engagement in general, in equitable access, economic opportunities from the perspective of the library itself, but also from the perspective of the library serving as a connector to the community. Education and safety. We are organizing the thoughts and the insights in 4 main buckets, and that's the list on the right. We will be talking to you about the insights that we received about engagement, the resources that should be available, safety, and other insights that we thought were very important because they came up repeatedly. Any questions so far?
Excuse me, what
Yes.
is meant by safety?
Yes. So we asked a question that was open-ended, and the question was, do you feel safe to immigrants and refugees? Anchors and immigrants in focus groups as well answered this question, and I believe the partner organizations answered this question.
Yeah, we asked the partner organizations the same question, and we allowed them to define safety.
Yeah.
So for some people, it was literally physical safety, and for other people, just more like this is a safe space where I believe that I can research what I want to research. So they got to define it, then we took what they said, and we have some slides about that in a little bit.
Yes, I think that you will perhaps see a little bit more what they meant by seeing the insights, and we let them define it.
I did have another question. How did you identify the anchors, especially in communities maybe that you weren't real familiar with? How would you know who the anchors are?
And I think that's the benefit of having really been here and worked here for 20 years with immigrants and refugees. I was previously CEO of Amani Family Services. I worked in outreach at city government with community development, and before then with the Red Cross International Services here. With that said, I also looked at it from a perspective of demographics, meaning making sure that it wasn't just people that I knew. It was not about that, but it was people that served in a recognized role in the community, and that is pastors, for instance, you'll see that, community leaders. But also we, quite honestly, looked at people that could potentially connect us to groups, because we knew we were going to do interviews, but also we were going to do focus groups. Our focus groups are not only the sites of the focus groups were not only the results of the interviews we did with the anchors, but they certainly helped a lot. Okay. Did I really go too fast here? Okay, so anchors, yes. What we heard. Okay, good. Okay, as far as engagement, our collection of insights say that there is a sense of a lack of connection. That's what we heard, lack of connection or lack of awareness. And anchors often refer to almost an expectation, an unmet expectation of, I don't know who at the library does diversity.
If I could interrupt you.
Yes, please.
Were these individuals library card holders in their native country? Or is there?
You know, that is not a question that we asked. So I can just stand here and try to recall the conversations and say, you know, what experience would have had with the libraries in their country of origin. In some cases I can, but because I have not specifically asked that question, I think that I shouldn't try to just recollect it. But I would say this, anchors typically are fluent in English. Anchors typically have, not always, have had a higher level of education, not in all cases. Many times they act as trainers, instructors of English classes. In many cases, they've they were really passionate about the library. Many of them recalled about how, when they first arrived in the United States, the library was such a critical place for them to go. They have very fond memories. So I would say that's what I can say about that feedback. There was a series of comments about what the environment feels like and looks like. And the comments we heard went from, I love the globe in the entrance. I just wish there were more things that represented my country, or more vibrant colors. I wish there were more opportunities for space where I could gather with friends or colleagues. I feel like I have to be quiet at the library. My culture is not quite like that. Also, a lot of, hey, I would love to serve on an advisory committee of immigrants and refugees. Do you have any such group? Because there is a lot of interest in serving. There was comment about the entrance, how important the entrance is, you know, from the way the space looks from, to the lack of perhaps greetings, to the look of security guards that in some countries you might have heard, security, police, enforcement is not necessarily seen as a trustworthy force. So some hesitation in feeling fully welcomed in the library. And then a continuous indication, and this will come up again later, as to, you know, people won't want to just come and be pointed to where to find resources. We need more than just a computer to sit in front of. We like to be acknowledged, thanked even for being here, and then I like to be, you know, maybe escorted to a resource. And that's come up frequently. So what resources should be available according to anchors? Well, it'd be great to have more multilingual programs. If you ask them, if this was my phone, everything I can find is on my phone today. But what I really, really need is somebody that could tell me what resources are there at the library. I have anchors that talked about business owners that would love to use the resources of the library, but they're not yet familiar with those resources. And who should they call if they don't speak English? We heard a lot about services, and we documented that would actually be impactful to immigrants and refugees. Citizenship classes, English classes for adults, certain type of navigation help of Fort Wayne 101, Allen County 101, USA 101. There is a sense of the library is a place that I can trust. And if I find that information here, I would use it. I would feel welcome. And again, I wish to see more multicultural staff, multicultural speakers in general, multicultural materials. Gosh, I can go on and on. So please ask me questions if you want to know more. But safety, the safety questions. The anchors, some of them, before we even ask the question of safety, they have something to tell us about safety, just as we were conversing, having interviews. And I have to say, in those cases, the comments that they brought up, or they, brought as an answer to our question, were about, I am not sure I would feel safe going to a library with children nowadays. Or I see a lot of indigent and people that seem homeless, and they have big backpacks, and I'm not sure what they're carrying. Or I have heard, or I have seen, uses of the restroom that I don't think are appropriate. And so those were the concerns that anchors brought up. You will see on the immigrant refugee groups, we've heard other things. But in general, I guess what we can say, Ben, is also we heard one thing is to feel safe, and one thing is to feel welcome. I think that could summarize that. Let's see, tailored to groups, immigrants and refugees. I was talking to a staff member earlier. Our community is quickly changing. Immigrants and refugees, we have a large group of refugees that are still not fluent in English. We need to pay attention, but we also have younger youth that we talk to. Their needs are different. Children needs, their children of refugees, their needs are going to be different from the seniors. And so they suggested to pay attention to groups of ages. Show follow through. So again, congratulations, you've done something fantastic. But at the same time, what you have to know is that we walked into doors where other organizations, other entities of government had walked before and then walked away without results. And so there is a sense of trepidation for what could be, but also a sense of, I'm not sure if I can count on seeing results as a result of this study. Something to be aware of. That it's not your fault. It's just, a community-wide issue. Yes, cultural awareness, learning opportunities. It's not just about the language. That's what we heard. It's also about seeing diverse staff, yes, but also seeing staff who are welcoming and aware of different faiths and religions and cultures. Okay, I'll stop here for questions before I go into the focus group. This is going to be similar, but it's a little different. And as you hear me talk about focus group, pictures large groups of English learners. We've done several of these focus groups with the help of professional language interpreters. So they're going to have a different experience, right? Or at least this is what we heard. Some of it is different, some of it goes along. Unfortunately, when we did talk to these rooms full of individuals who are still learning, in the process of learning English, what we found is that very few of them had actually been at the library. We spoke to two groups of 15 people each. 2 people in each of those groups had been at the library out of 15. The person who did actually took the library card of their backpack and said, look, I got it, I'm so excited. It came in the mail, but it's all in English. So excitement, interest, confusion, a need let me go back to my script here. Yes, some hesitation. What does the library actually offer? That was the question. I don't know anybody. So that means we are seeking information from trusted organizations or trusted individuals. And we don't have that connection yet. What resources should be available? Wayfinding and signage. Signage in multiple language that tells me where to go. That'd be great. Infographics, a little pamphlet that tells me what the library provides and how to navigate it in my language, possibly. And then if I were to choose what services I would like, we've heard again, there are certain types of programs that matter to immigrants and refugees. And we found that potentially these are also gaps in the community. I don't have quite all the tools to tell you that, but I sense there is a need for these services in the community. First-time home buyer classes, help with filling out benefit forms, citizenship classes. If it's employment resources, tell me what United States looks like. What are employment forms in this country? How do I fill them out? Multicultural conversations, and then multicultural collections. Many times, this was actually with anchors as well, we've heard, I want to raise my children bicultural, bilingual, and the library is a great resource. I just wish the library had history, language books. And this came across all the countries of origin that they represented. Transportation was brought up. Not just the lack of transportation, but also the time that the parent has when they for instance, they could take the kids to homework help, but they can't because they're working at that time, or they simply lack transportation. Safety as far as focus groups. The concern was brought up again as far as potential sense of lack of safety, behaviors that were seen inappropriate in certain branches, drug use, homeless people potentially utilizing the resources in a way that didn't seem appropriate and that made them feel less safe to sort of bring their children. There was some concern about a branch where there is apparently a lot of youth that come and they have little attendance, Georgetown branch, which in one particular group was brought up significantly. And then I would say the other points that we heard, again, have a workforce that looks like me, that reflects me, or at least provide staff with learning opportunities, be consistent, be strategic. We don't know what you want to do, but be strategic about it. Tell us. Okay, I'm going to stop to give you another opportunity for questions before I let Andy come and tell us about the partner organizations that he has talked to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just trying to think, I'm Macedonian, and I remember when the Macedonians came over. I think that people, when they come here, and I'm not just talking the library, need to make a connection with people. If we can, when they come into the door, they are greeted, because most individuals from different cultures are very into getting together as a group and doing functions together. And I think in our society, sometimes we're separating ourselves. And it's also, how do you denesi yourself? That means, how do you present yourself? Are you comfortable? Do you have a smile on your face? Do you appreciate me being here? Are you not turned off because I speak in a different accent? As far as that, even a different accent can separate you so much that some people make you aware that that's inappropriate. I think just connecting in a very personal manner is important, because otherwise, can you imagine when you go to a different foreign country and you don't speak the language, and if you had to live there, other than just traveling there?
It's quite a different
It is.
survival. It's about
putting your
survival.
children in a group that you don't know these people.
Yes, thank you. This matches what we've heard, so thank you.
I think it's
Ken?
great that that we're going down this path to dig deeper into this. I know when we were doing some of the strategic planning and even the capital projects, I think we struggled to engage with this population from that standpoint. So I'm glad we're being very intentional about it on that end. From the focus groups, do you have a total number of people that were engaged to those focus groups and what that looks like? A range even?
Yes, no, of course. Let me.
It's going to be, I want to say, around 100 actually by the time, because with all of the groups, there were 8 focus groups, the 2 had 15.
Okay.
More than 75, less than 100.
Great, okay, great. Because I know that when we did some outreach, we had maybe 2 or 3 show up, and so I just wanted to see what number of population we were talking about, so that's great.
Yeah, and this is one of the advantages of the way
Yeah.
the methodology was set up, was by starting with the anchors, you actually have established some credibility.
Yep.
And they can then help actually bring the focus groups together, which not enough credit was given for that part of the methodology. Irene didn't take enough credit for saying, hey, this is the way to do this, but it was the way to make sure that we actually heard from more than 2 or 3 people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So you have to go back to
Yep.
that.
Okay, we're going to talk now about the partner groups. The library staff and we identified a number of potential partner groups. We selected a subset of them, invited them to participate, and I will say everyone who was invited participated except for one. I'm not going to identify anybody who didn't, but I'm going to say it's because they were really busy. So that's why they didn't participate, not because they don't love the library. When we get to Gloria's point and the point that was made earlier about don't just point people to a place in the library, actually walk them there, the library is in some respects just a big black box for people. It's sort of like county council, it's like city council. We don't know how that works. We just want a portal. We want some way in, and that's usually established through a relationship. And that's why the anchors become very important for immigrant groups. And what we heard from a lot of the partners was basically, we get that. We understand that people may not know how to walk into the main branch, let alone what to do once you get in here. So is there a way to have a contact, somebody who is the entry point to the big black box that is known as the library? And several of the partners pointed out that although there are obviously branches throughout the county, that does not necessarily meet people where they are. That is still a building you're asking people to come to. It might be one that's very close to their house, but you're still asking them to move to you. And the partners were saying, look, based on our experiences, sometimes you just got to go to them. It might be a block away, 2 blocks away, 3 blocks away. You got to go to them. Go where they are, whether that's a church, a community center, someone's house, a business. Go to them is another thing that we heard repeatedly. The idea of a kitchen cabinet, I'm a political guy, as you all know, so for me, kitchen cabinet was it's a shorthand phrase for me. There were a lot of the partners who said, in the end, you don't necessarily have to form yet another official group of some kind. If you can informally get some people together on a semi-regular basis, that would be very helpful. Go where they are, don't make them come to you, and make sure that when you are reaching out to them, you actually are putting their time to good use. So there should be some idea of what there's to be discussed, and then show them you actually did what you said you were going to do. And then, of course, there was a comment that libraries for people like my age, we grew up in them. My grandmothers were librarians. My mom worked in a library when she was younger. This is what you did. Not necessarily so today because of the phones and tablets, et cetera, that keep people thinking they don't need to come to the library. What should be available? When we asked the partner organizations this, we sort of asked them about 3 kinds of things. You know, basic, like how to use the library stuff. The stuff, but in a language. So how can I search databases, make sure the database works in my language? Or should we have collections of things? And it was interesting because there were some partners who said, oh, you got to have that first thing. If they can't even get in the door, that's not going to work. And then other people said, no, because they may not be literate in their native language even. So having, this is what a library is, this is what a library does, written down someplace may not be the most helpful thing. In the end, that became sort of a difficult question for the partner organizations to sort of put their flag down and say, this is what we think is most important in that regard, other than this. Content should reflect the community. And so they were kind of saying, if you're giving us these 3 choices, collections might be the most important thing, but put it in a place where we can find it, and we can find it easily. Escort me to that place. Don't just point over at it, but escort me to it so that I can use it. And I forget which partners brought this up, but books that are in actually both languages were very popular because you could actually, if you were literate in your native language, but your child was born here, learned how to read maybe in first grade, second grade, third grade, you could actually be reading both at the same time, which of course, we think makes a lot of sense. Multilingual life skill classes. This came up repeatedly, and it's not just Fort Wayne 101, which quite frankly, or County 101, which might be beneficial to everybody, but also how do I become a citizen? How do I make a doctor appointment? How do I do anything in the country where I have found myself and need to begin to interact? Of course, there were a lot of people saying you got to be interactive these days. You can't just lecture at people like we're doing right now. But you're all old enough that you can survive a lecture. So we're going to keep doing this. But it's got to be interactive, of course. And then having somebody who can translate shows respect, but is actually pretty challenging when you start thinking about the number of dialects within Burmese or just the number of languages, 75 languages spoken in Fort Wayne Community Schools. It's challenging. When you think about the young student who has to do the translating when parents are called to a school, Gloria can talk about this, here's the second grader who has to translate from the school administrator or the teacher to the parent or the grandparent. That's pretty complicated. but it shows respect if you're at least making an attempt to do that. So these are a few of the things that they were talking about consistently. When it comes to safety, Ben, this is back to you. People feel less safe than they used to feel, but they also recognize libraries are soft targets. If you're open and inviting, you're a soft target. It's going to be kind of hard to play that balance, and that's something that people who live here recognize. Libraries foster creativity. That's what they should be doing. When people come here, they should feel inspired to do new things, to look up new things, to become better versions of themselves. And although the idea of cultural awareness, we always talk about that in sort of one direction, I should be more culturally aware, it actually is a two-way street. And the library could facilitate that. Now, the partner organizations were very clear to say, we don't expect the library to do all of these things. In fact, the library should find as many partners as possible to do them. But libraries are known as curators. Libraries are the place that know what is good information or bad information. They are digital literacy experts and other forms of literacy experts. So use them for that, play up that reputation, and we find ourselves in a situation that becomes more beneficial. Couple of other things that are worth mentioning before we get to general findings. First of all, schools for the most part are one-to-one now. So if you're a student, you've got a tablet, a computer, or something. And you still want students to come here, so what's the value added that gets somebody into the library or they get when they get to the library? Whether that is supplemental things like programs, whether that is helping to foster creativity, whatever the case may be, although Marty is taking out a shelf of books today like he does every library board meeting, not everybody's coming here for that reason because they believe they can get it all on a tablet someplace. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then if you go down the road of something like translation, the partners, and we heard this from the anchors and the focus groups, start small and make sure you get it right. Don't come at us with everything and then do nothing right. Start small, prove that you're going to get it done and get it done right, and then move on from there. So let's move to sort of general findings. There are a number of these on the screen. We don't have to go through all of them because you've been hearing them, but here are some things that we really want to drive home. First of all, signage, making it a welcoming environment. This is a wonderful exhibition of, let's call it earth tone in this room. I think Sharon's shirt might be the most colorful thing in this room right now, and that's about it. After that, it's even me. I sort of blend into the wall right now. So, make them welcome and inviting spaces. Go ahead and greet people. Even if all you're saying is hello when someone walks in, thanks for coming in. Escort them to the material they're looking for. Although I do want to point out very quickly, your staff recognizes that can be problematic because it means a line can form, which is maybe not necessarily a good thing. But there will be people like me. You point me in a direction, I'm happy to go there. Other people, perhaps escort. Use live people whenever possible. Instead of technology, even though technology is wonderful, we can do walking tours, so to speak, with headphones like you've gone into a museum. Here's how you find your way around the library, but do it in Spanish or do it in Bosnian, etc. That will be helpful, but the live person makes that connection. The live person helps out quite a bit. Get out into the community. Do as much as you can out where people are so that they agree, they know to come in, they decide this is a good place to be. And then this might be one of my favorite options comments right here. The standard operating procedures you have may make absolute sense to you, but not necessarily to everybody else in the world. And so maybe there's a little need for a little decentralization, a little discretion, or modification of some things, but that's something that's sort of ongoing. That's not like a one-time thing you need to worry about. Also here, in terms of resources that are available, I go back to the library as the curator. If the library tells me this is a good way to do research, I trust that. If the library tells me here's how you judge sources as good or bad, I trust that. That's what libraries have been, that's what libraries are, that's what libraries should continue to be based on what we're hearing from people. But if the library is having a talk that they're a sponsor of, that should be telling me that that's going to be a pretty good talk. That's something there that's worth hearing or seeing or listening to. So keep that in mind as much as possible. The library is a connector. Once again, don't provide all the programs yourself. Just connect people. Where is all this stuff that somebody might need to take advantage of? And then if you do go down the road of equipment, don't think that one piece of equipment is enough. You got to make sure that the keyboards are actually available in multiple types of alphabets, et cetera. It can't all be done the same way. There were people who referenced, I can't remember if this was an anchor, a focus group, or someone else, keyboards literally set on either side of a kiosk, where I would have the English keyboard over here, but somebody over here would be using the keyboard of their language, and we'd be able to communicate with each other. There's still the human element, but a bit of a technology intercession. Transportation and childcare, surely things that you've never heard anyone talk about before as needs in our community. The things that people talked about were not always specific to immigrant and refugee populations, and I want to emphasize that right now through these first few items. Life skills, those are good for anybody. How do you apply for work? How do you what's the Fort Wayne history? How do you know the structure of county government, et cetera, those sorts of things. There also are programs people love, story time. We asked the library staff, what's the most useful program you have, best program you have at your branch or wherever you are? Story time was it. By the way, story was also the number one thing they liked the least. So, it's a give and take. It's a bit of both. Made me chuckle a little bit when I read it. But that's something that's good for everybody, whether you're talking about somebody doing that in Russian versus English, doesn't really matter. And if you're going to get into the English language stuff, keep in mind the social aspect of it. There were a lot of people who actually referred to them as conversation classes. The idea is you just get together socially, and you have a good time, talk with each other. I learn a little bit of yours, you learn a little bit of mine. We both learn a little bit of a third language. They said that was awfully important to them. General safety, yeah, there are concerns, as you've heard before, homeless people, potential drug use, those sorts of things become a problem and a concern for people. But they are issues that we face as a larger community. And then security folks, I just need to emphasize this. Security people make you feel safe and less safe depending on what your previous experience has been. What we did hear consistently is the fact that the officers, the folks who are here in security, are not wearing Fort Wayne PD or Allen County PD uniforms is helpful because that really says law enforcement, whereas security doesn't necessarily say that. So that we heard was a good thing. And always remember that security is about emotional security. For a couple of the partner organizations we spoke with, they actually meet with their clients or potential clients in branches. And they do that because this is viewed as a neutral space, a safe space, an emotionally safe space. And then that's what they walk away from the library with as a perception. The last thing to mention, mostly because Dave is here, employees understand there are fiscal issues at play here. And so no matter what, you can't do everything. And the question is, how do you balance that out? And what the partners told us, what the employees told us was, is you balance it out in part by partnering with folks. Don't worry about being the direct provider of services. Bring in folks who will do that. Focus on a few things you can get done and grow from there. And then, interestingly, we did hear from a number of people hire a social worker. That was both internal and external. I think that's kind of a recognition of the state we live in right now, the situation we live in right now. Keep that in mind, and if there are no questions for me, you will now hear a little something about an asset building map.
Okay, so this is an attempt to summarize all this information you just heard, and this page will also be on the report. Susan, sorry you haven't seen this yet, but the information in itself is not going to be new. So the engagement process that we went through ultimately serves the purpose of the library to develop strategies, right? This is what we've heard. It's part of the strategic planning process. And so what we've done is that we looked at everything we've heard and transformed that information into possible steps that the library could consider. As part of our project as well, we had the opportunity to look into the current diversity inclusion policies that the library has. And so on the left, you see potential actions and steps that the library could take to strengthen its internal operations. And on the right, things that it could do to work with the community directly. And in the center, at the heart, is potentially suggestion to assign a role, a position or a role for diversity inclusion. Somebody that could do both the strengthening of the implementing of internal policies, as well as the connections, the relationship building, and the mechanism for continuous feedback. This is one point in time. So Andy says always to me, you're supposed to do studies, not just once, but, if you want to. So how do you continuously hear about how programs potentially can be received? So I don't want to go into that detail other than letting you know that this is a summary page of everything you've heard, and my hope is that Susan, the staff, and you can utilize this maybe for your next steps. Thank you for your time. We have given you a lot of information. Are there any questions?
This discussion was started with a thank you for even doing this. This is not something you find happening in governmental organizations or in libraries almost anywhere. So congratulations and thank you very much.
Well, I do have one question. Yes. From the group, were there individuals that struck you that could be called into a smaller group as this is developed that would be helpful for them?
Yes, and if you recall, we have identified individuals that are anchors, or individuals that often spoke about themselves, but also the community. There are certainly individuals that would be willing and interested. Yes. Yes, and so Kent, I looked up the number. We talked to 80 people in the focus groups, plus the 9 in the interview. So 89 individuals we
Wonderful.
talked, as far as the immigrants, refugees only. Okay.
I guess I had a comment, and part of it is you talked about people didn't go to the library. Do they know what it is? Because I've been in other countries, and frankly, the American library system is unique.
It's different.
It's so much bigger and better than any other countries that I've ever heard of or been in, that people just don't really believe it when you tell them, yes, you can go in, these are what we do for our community.
And it's free.
And it's
which is
free,
unique.
and they truly don't believe that, because they
Yes.
never heard of such a thing.
For sure.
So I'm just kind of, how do we get past that barrier? with
No,
people?
actually, that was brought up and by a pastor that said, we just have to build a whole culture about libraries for immigrants. Myself, I was blown away. This is my favorite place, but I was not expecting that. So, yes, completely what we found.
But we should also, and this, Irene told me this numerous times during interviews, focus groups, for a lot of folks who are being served very early in their time here, it's basic stuff. How do we take care of housing? They're not thinking what else is available. And so this almost becomes like another layer. Okay, we've got you in, we've got you settled, we've taken care of your housing. Now let's start talking about what else exists within the community. And I think that, I can't remember the first time you brought that up to me, but it made so much sense that you don't want to overwhelm people with too much information. So let's take care of the basic needs and then work our way out.
We talked about it, yes. So there's a balance, but certainly it is very useful in the resettlement, in the navigation process. The library just has such a important role to play. It may be making people feel like they belong to the community as a whole.
Can I share something?
Yes. Come up here, please.
I would just like to follow up on your questions. So, as a refugee and immigrant, my family was fled from Burma to Thailand, and we stayed in Thailand for about 10 years. And during that time, I was just a kid, but during that 10 years, I happened to walk into our library, and our library, to give you guys a visual, is just built on bamboo. So the community built a library based on with the bamboo, and then they will put in books. So in our community, we see the library as just library that hold books and informations. No such program that the library has offered from here. And so not only that, it's not free. When it comes to free, I'm not going towards the cost of it, but the fact that you cannot take it home. So when you go check out a book, you have to be inside, and when you have to finish it in there, and then once you finish, you leave. But you cannot take book back home. And so I just wanted to give a visual for you guys that the library back in my community, back in camp, is that the library is only whole with books, no other services. And if you wanted to check it out, you cannot take it back. You just got to check it out, and then you got to finish it there, and then you leave. So that's what I see when I'm back in back in camp. But when I come here, so much difference. Like, you can say I'm like living in heaven, you know, in the cloud nine. So to us, it's like that. And we are very appreciated because of it. So I just want to give you guys visual.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mainly for Susan, I guess, what are, and maybe you're going to go into this, but like next steps for the organization and where you're all thinking of going from here to take the information we've learned and implement?
Next on the agenda.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, how appropriate.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy to work with you, and that will continue. This has been really, really helpful for all of us. Thank you. On that note, thank you for the segue, Kent. So as part of our strategic planning process, we want to share an update from another survey we have done with our staff regarding vision and values. We currently have a library mission statement, which is enriching our community through lifelong learning and discovery. As part of this process, we would also like to develop a vision statement as well as value statements. So to distinguish between the two, value statements state what's important to us as an organization and what we stand for. They reflect who we are and define organizational culture, and they also function as lenses for making organizational decisions. While a vision statement is a future-oriented declaration of ACPL's aspirations. So the mission statement defines our purpose for being, and the vision statement says, based on that purpose, this is what we want to become. So the words and ideas presented in our value and vision survey are from our staff that we solicited during last fall's ACPL staff day. We asked staff to respond with their feedback about the importance of each proposed value and vision statement. And you have that PowerPoint. It has a green cover in your packet. And we asked their response for certain words. And the weighted averages of the value statements ranked highest to lowest. The highest, this is not a surprise, with a 4.71 rating out of 5, is literacy and learning. And coming up second with community service at 4.68, integrity at 4.57, inclusion and belonging, 4.57, and finally, responsibility at 4.36. So all were considered highly important. We also offered some suggestions for a possible vision statement, and you can see the rankings in this presentation as well. Upon further feedback and discussion among staff and some feedback I got from you as well, some additional options for a vision statement were offered, and you can see that in your packet at the very back, called the Vision Statement Postscript. Some other ideas for a vision statement. We are really interested in incorporating the idea of the power of story in our vision statement. One possible statement that, after various discussion, has sort of risen to the top of the pile is a community connected to each other, and we're using that term connection. We heard a lot of that in our presentation earlier. A community connected to each other through lifelong learning and the transformative power of stories. And there's been some questions about what we mean by the power of stories. And what I think is so beautiful about it is it has many layers of meaning, and it invites a lot of conversation. It can be the stories on the shelves, literally the stories you find on the shelves of the library. It can be the stories that are created at the library when an immigrant is coming here to learn about citizenship, to learn English, to connect with others. It can be the stories you discover about yourself, about your ancestors. The power of story is a theme that Kurt uses as a foundation for many of his presentations, and I've asked him to expand on that a bit, if he might.
you have been generous with your time, so I will be brief, but I couldn't have said it, articulated any better than Susan just said it. I think that sometimes we think of story in silos, but there are many layers and many forms to story. I embrace story because it's what I love and have a passion for, but a certain silo of that, so that's family stories and family history. But if you think of library as story, the whole idea of story goes back literally to the cave paintings and scratchings and drawings people have always wanted to share. And the library has been and continues to be a connector. And I'm so excited and fascinated and amazed about how this library helps people find story and do story. Just 3 wonderful examples. So this year's Team Read, you may have seen some of the wonderful news clips where people are connected by story and they develop their own story. The young boy with the Team Read girl, they don't look like they belong together, but they developed a story together, learning about story. I happened to be in the Roland Center months ago, and then an unhomed person came in, and you could tell this was a person living on the margin, whatever kind of description you want to use. He was kind of happy, kind of twitchy, and he's looking around, and he kind of lands at me like I'm kind of looking at Paul, and he says, "I want to see the ghost." And it's like, ghost. It took me like a couple minutes, a couple seconds to think, oh, he wants to see the most popular photograph image in the Roland Center, and that's the spirit photograph of Abraham Lincoln's spirit behind Mary. He had heard a story, and he came in to make his story. So we went over to the big Lincoln Family Album projection and showed him the picture, and I think that was probably the happiest he had been in a long time. He smiled, kind of jumped up a little bit, and he goes, yes, I saw the ghost. So he heard a story, he came to make his story, and he probably left and told other stories. The Story Times being the most popular program amongst all of our Allen County agencies, Allen County Public Library buildings, people are listening to a story and creating their own story around that. I believe fairly passionately that we as a society don't pay enough attention to the whole concept of story. 2 more quick points. Scientists, not liberal arts people like me, but scientists say that listening and engaging in a story engages more parts of your brain than any other human activity. Think about that. All the human activities you've been involved with, story engages the most different parts of your brain. And then the final point where I think story is so important, and it's neat to see us consider that as part of our mission. We're taking what we do and we're helping people create and make stories and get connected through stories. On the early side of our life, educators, sociologists tell us that young people who hear stories are better able to handle change, handle diversity, handle things that surprise them, handle tragedy better, they score better, they make friends better, and they track some of these people through college, after college, and they're more successful in life because someone's taken the time to share a story or listen to their story or develop a story together. Then you move to the other end of the life spectrum, and people in elder care facilities, there are studies going on. We're participating in one of those with Vivid Pics, which is a company that's working with the National Institute for Dementia Study. And what do they say? They say that people on the dementia spectrum, if you can show them something and tell them a story, it slows down memory regression. It makes them more compliant with healthcare professionals' requests. And it may sound like a trivial thing, they're happier, they're more content. So I hope, Susan, that's what you were looking for.
Yes,
but
and then some. Yes, perfect.
story is really meaningful, and what Susan articulated really sums it up even much better than I did. Questions or
Thank you.
comments?
You did it much better than me. Thank you. Thank you so much. So as far as practical next steps, our community survey is going on right now. Please, we encourage everybody to fill it out, acpl.info/survey. We're going to have it open through August 9th. In August, we as senior leadership plan on coming back to you as the board with some ideas for the overarching focus areas of the plan to get your feedback on them. This will be 4 or 5 big goals that will provide strategic framework and direction. So as a reminder, with our existing plan, those overarching focus areas are libraries place, innovative and adaptable content and services, a culture of collaboration, leadership and learning, and community awareness and engagement. And those focus areas were important when the plan was originally adopted, and they still are important. I can't imagine a next iteration of the plan that doesn't include all of that. It's still very important, but we'll probably be reimagining that or interpreting it a little differently. So we want to get your feedback on those overarching areas that we're going to come up with based on what we've learned from our survey and what we've learned from our presentation tonight. Get some feedback on that, and then come back to you in September with a draft plan as well as a draft values and vision statement for you to review. And ideally, we'd love to have an approved plan in place by October at the latest.
Comment or a question. I feel like I know the answer to it, Susan. However, I probably would not be able to sleep well tonight if I didn't bring the point out for myself.
Yeah.
Okay. In the presentation, I found it interesting that of the focus groups, some of the concerns were the patrons that we have in the library, whether they're unhoused or not. And so I just want to make sure that while we're working on our plan of inclusion, that we continue to keep our plan of inclusion. It, to me, strikes me kind of funny that folks who are saying include me kept mentioning folks who were unsheltered to be excluded, and maybe I took it the wrong way, especially since I'm sensitive to the population.
Absolutely.
But I would not be able to rest well if I didn't speak that truth out for individuals who are unhoused. And part of me was going, what do they do? Where do they go? And this is one of the only safe spaces for that
Right.
population as well.
Right.
And so I'd like to make sure that I think I know the answer to it, and I'm not asking you to solve the problem today, but just to know that I've spoke peace on behalf of those that are unsheltered.
I am so glad you did. That is incredibly important, and you're absolutely right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, you're still on, Susan.
I'm still on, and you all are still hanging in there, so I really appreciate it. And I'll try to be brief, but I do have an executive director's report. You have a written copy. A few highlights as part of our E-rate funding for this upcoming year. It says we'll be upgrading. We have upgraded, right, Kim? Our wide area network connection from 1 gigabytes to 2 gigabytes. Is it gigabytes? Did I say that correctly? I don't know my tech lingo very well sometimes. That's why I looked to Kim. That upgrade happened on July 19th. And thanks to the hard work of our IT staff, our library receives a 90% discount on the service due to E-rate participation. So thank you for that. July continues to be a very busy outreach month for us. In July, we were at Three Rivers International Festival. We were at Fort Wayne Pride, and this coming weekend, we're going to be at Woodburn for John Deere Kids Day of Play, hanging out with the tractors and all the farm equipment. The Friends of the Library had their annual meeting on July 13th. They are continuing their membership recruitment efforts, and they've created promotional materials to have in our libraries and distribute at outreach events. And you see attached to your director's report that the Friends funded a charter bus for 14 staff members to attend the exhibits at the American Library Association Conference in Chicago last month. and the Friends Board greatly enjoyed reading a report of the trip from the staff. I have George Johnson Coffey here tonight, our audio reading service manager. She was gracious enough to, at my request, be the guest speaker at the Rotary Club of Fort Wayne's July 17th meeting about her program. It was very, very well received. And last month, and we were honored to have the presence of both Ben and Jim there, the annual Audio Reading Service Volunteer Recognition Luncheon was held at Miro Center, and we had 111 people in attendance. And the luncheon was funded by an ARS volunteer with some supplemental funding from the Friends of the Library. And it was lovely, and we're grateful for that. And George also has a visual aid even, a special award that she would like to share with you that she received recently.
Thank you, Susan. So the audio reading service belongs to a professional organization called the International Association of Audio Information Services. And last month in June, we had our annual conference, and during that time, there was an award ceremony for programming excellence, and we won the Program of the Year for Consumer Information was the category, and we also got a certificate that I was able to send to the volunteer, Carrie Kyle, who's been with us for 13 years, and the program is called Weekend, and it's a really neat program because Carrie talks about all the events coming up on the weekend, whether it's museums that are open or concerts or art exhibits, just festivals, all kinds of things. And she does an excellent job because we won the award. And and it's one of the things that our listeners really appreciate. And I just have a couple quotes from listeners about the weekend program. One is, my mom listens to the weekend program and often attends events she hears about that are going on in the Fort Wayne area. And I think that's significant because not only are we imparting information, but that information is making an impact on the listeners, and they're getting out and about in the community and being a part of the community. The other one is, I like listening to the weekend. I had no idea there was so much going on in Fort Wayne and all around. So it was a thrill to win this award, and I'm very, very happy to show it off. So,
Thank you for coming, George. I was going to put it in my report, and I thought it would be better just to have George come.
yeah, and
actually
you
show
can
it.
see it. You can touch it afterwards if you
Yes,
want.
yes. A few more.
Great job.
A few more very brief things. I wanted to acknowledge the retirement of an employee that many of you know. I would contend that a lot of our county officials, this employee is the most recognized person throughout the Allen County Public Library. It is Larry Banks. Larry Banks has been with us for 20 years, and he is the gentleman who does the recording for all county meetings. If you have watched a county council meeting, a county commission meeting, that is the work of Larry. And in his career, he has taped and attended about 2,100 meetings. And we are so sad to see him go, but thrilled for everything he has accomplished, and we wish him all the best. Tomorrow at the county commission meeting, there's going to be a proclamation. It is going to be Larry Banks Day. Also, Aja has a new staff member that she would like to introduce. Who's right there?
Yes, I'd like to introduce our new marketing manager. Chris, you want to come up? Sure. And he is taking over our marketing team, and so excited that he's here. This is Chris Ford coming from Abundant Life Church, and I'll let him say a little bit about himself. I'll just say that I'm so excited that he's here, and he's already doing an incredible job with our team.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. As Aja said, my name is Chris Ford, and I'm glad to be here today. And when Aja invited me, I looked down and I thought, well, I'm glad I wore my cool shirt today, so hopefully you think it's cool as well. But I've been here with the library now for a few weeks, and it's just been an exciting opportunity, a breath of fresh air. As Aja said, I come from Abundant Life Church, where I wore several hats. Kim and I were laughing and talking the other day when she and I were in discussions about how we've done some very similar things. But I am glad to be in this role and working with Aja and Susan and all the other professionals here that I've met thus far. and just really excited about the things to come for the library. So thank you all. I recognize some names as I saw some folks on the board, and to Andy, who I haven't seen in a long time, it's good to see you as well, my dear friend Sharon. So wonderful, and thank you all again. Thank you.
Thank you. One final item on my report, and we've covered a lot of ground tonight. We've had some pretty intense discussions, so I want to end on a very heartwarming and furry note. If you look at your quarterly manager's report, there's a lot in here, but on page 23, you'll see something near and dear to my heart, a mama cat and her kittens. So our security officers do so much for our organization, and they really see the comedy and tragedy of life every day. They have been involved in what are truly life and death situations, and we're so grateful for their service. And sometimes those life-saving situations involve our furry friends. So our security officer, Joe, at Shawnee, discovered that a mama cat used the grounds of Shawnee as the birthing place for her kittens, and he noticed that and scooped them up and is successfully fostering those kittens within his family right now. I think some of them are still up for adoption if anybody's interested in a cat, but it just shows that our security officers wear a lot of hats in keeping everybody, including the animals, safe and happy.
Did they get library cards?
They don't know how to sign their name yet, but once they do.
Anything else, Susan?
That's been a lot. That is it.
Under new business, does anyone have any new business? Let me bring to your attention an item in your packet. We were asked by Rich Beck, the chair of the Library Foundation, to put into nomination with their approval an individual by the name of Greg Stetner. You should have his vita in your packet. The Library Foundation has done segmented recruitment. Greg's background is in the banking business and in the investment business, which is a great asset to be a member of the foundation, which has assets. So I would like to place in nomination the name of Greg Stetner as a member of the Allen County Library Foundation.
Ben, may I add a bit of new information I learned? Greg is currently serving on the foundation's investment committee, so he does have an established relationship with the foundation.
Sounds good. Can I have a second?
Second with a question, is this an additional or a replacement?
Filling a place.
Thank you.
Any further question or discussion? All those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Thank you. Is there any public comment? I mistook you for the public. You're one of us now.
Yes, sir.
How about anything over the air?
Nothing from YouTube.
Nothing. Okay. Well, on that, unless there's any good and welfare, I'll entertain a motion. We adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And please stay around for the executive session.
And stay around for birthday cake.
Don't forget birthday. You couldn't let it pass.
No, I couldn't.
Happy birthday to you.